I don't know.
I don't know.
Wait till
Hey,
the push go.
We
we
good
got a
this?
cool screen on, so we should be good.
Adam, is this gonna be quick?
I think that's Colorado though. You guys get going, yeah.
All right. I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, June 4th, 2020. We are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance offered by Tyler Kirk. And if you just want to come up to the podium.
Ready? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Tyler. We do have a full quorum today. We have two individuals on the Planning Commission that are sitting virtually, and that's Andrea and Brody. And then we also have Lauren, Adam, and Heather and Jackson here as well, and then myself, Chris. We will have, first off, item 2.3, are there any conflicts of interest from anyone on the Planning Commission with any items on the agenda? All right, thank you, Brody. All right, thank you so much. And just to verify, Andrea, are you there as well?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure you're both here. All right, then we'll move on to the administrative items with item 3.1. And this will be continued, but it is on for a public hearing, so we will go through it. And then just to read, public hearings for this meeting will be conducted in person and will be limited to 2 minutes. Public hearing comments will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the commission may submit a comment by emailing recorder@herriman.org or by visiting herriman.org agendas and minutes, where there will be a link to join the electronic meeting to submit a written comment. Your statement will be read into the public record. All comments must include the respondent's name and the file number that is the subject of the comment. And so that is how we are conducting the public hearing. And I will turn over to city staff for item 3.1 to begin.
All right, this first item is a preliminary plat for an 8-lot commercial subdivision. As you said, this will be a public hearing. The property is just north of 126 South and just west of Mountain View Corridor. Excuse me. The new Maverick is right, just kind of kitty corner there. This is for 8 commercial lots. Again, this is the property that you recommended rezoning to commercial a couple weeks ago, because as you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but the auto mall is that darker red and the commercial is a little bit lighter red. So the request was just to rezone that whole piece. So this is for the commercial plat. Again, staff is recommending continuing this just to deal with a couple more engineering issues. This is the entire kind of auto mall property. This is turned sideways, sorry. So 126 is at the bottom here. And then the commercial plats would be down here at the bottom. So again, you can see the 8 lots, Main Street on the west side, and then the future auto mall drive kind of cuts the property in half. There's a kind of close up. This is just the contours on the site, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of drop grade, obviously, next to Mountain View Corridor. So that's part of what we've been working through. So again, public hearing, and then just continue it for a couple weeks so we can finalize a couple engineering issues.
Okay, at this time, are we going to have the applicant talk about anything or no?
I think he's here. He is here, so you might want to just hear from him.
All right, then we'll let the applicant have a couple minutes and they can share any additional information.
Hello, Larry Myler. Nice to meet you all for the first time. We've been at this for about 1.5 years now, but hello.
Great to meet you.
What can we answer about this? You have any questions specifically? Or
I don't think there's specific questions at this time. Maybe just any additional information that you think maybe the public might need to become aware of, or anything else that you think is relevant.
So there are a lot of issues here, as Bryn mentioned. The slope is one thing, but there are a lot of other issues, rights of way, and it's quite an assemblage of parcels. So there are just some complexities that we're working through. and they have to be ironed out. We ran into another one today, and I'll tell you later
good.
about it. But we're working on that too. So we think this will all go well. The issue and the challenge that we have is this overall parcel contains so many challenging complexities that we might not get through them in time for one deal that we're trying to do first on this, which is Lot 3.
Lot 3, yeah.
And that's Gorilla Car Wash. There's already one in Herriman, but the demand is so high, and they wanted to be in this section of the town, and we wanted to have them here as a draw to bring people in, and there will be restaurants in this area, so it'd be nice to come and get your car washed and have dinner, lunch, whatever. So we think it's a good compatible use and one that's needed by the city. Overall, we're trying to get retail, restaurant, tax generating uses in here. But we're making an exception because of the need. I tried to get lifetime free car washes as a part of the deal, but they have not given them to me, so I won't be clogging this up. I live in Daybreak, so I otherwise would be coming here a lot with this car wash. But so lot number 3 is the challenge, and we're not quite sure the best way to proceed. So kind of a heads up.
Yeah.
We may come back to you with a single lot plat, lot 3, so we could, because the complexities are so small with that one piece, and get that done so we can get that deal moving, and then work out all the wrinkles on the rest of these lots and come back in. So that's a possibility for the next couple of weeks or couple of meetings. We just don't know the best way to proceed yet. So we're working overtime to try to get everything done by next meeting, but it may not happen in time for lot 3, so.
Now, only question I have is based off what we're seeing, because I know there's complex issues with slope and everything else and just roads and things like that. Is anything going to potentially change the concept of this is commercial, this is, and it has 8 on here, but maybe it'll be 6 or 7 or whatever, but change what the overall view of what this is going to be? Because I'm going to open a public hearing, and I think that's probably the more relevant thing for the community.
So when you say change it, are you talking about just the land that we're looking at right here?
Yeah, we're just meaning, are we going to look at anything drastic that's going to change it from this being commercial, wanting to rezone, or anything that's out of the ordinary? Because right now I'm looking at this, and if it's going to come back and it's going to be commercial and it's going to be this amount of lots, and
It's all
so it's
commercial.
nothing surprising.
It's all commercial. There are no surprises. We've been talking to restaurants, convenience stores, even a specialty grocery store, which we can't name right now. But so we're talking to a lot of users, but they're all commercial users. Let me anticipate another question, because it kind of came up with the city council. This kind of eats into the auto mall land, right? And there was a concern that maybe we're diminishing the capacity of the auto mall by expanding this C2 zone northward. We don't think that's the case. A couple of reasons why. The original plan of the auto mall contemplated 10-acre lots for the dealerships. What we're finding is we're talking to them as they're looking at more 5 to 7 acres. So we can get the same number of dealerships in a smaller amount of land. So this little bit of encroachment won't hurt because of that reason, but mainly we still have 60 acres left north of this. I think we need about 50 to do what we want to do with the auto mall. So we're probably overshooting even with what this leaves for the auto mall itself. I don't think it's going to jeopardize that at all.
All right. Thank you, Larry. I don't have any other
What's
questions.
the protocol? Do I wipe this off now that I've touched it? Is that what we do? Just like a treadmill in the gym?
So Chris, I don't think, like you said, I don't think this commercial isn't gonna grow more than this. It's not gonna diminish probably. It's not gonna, it may change the number of lots, but I don't think so. I think it's really just engineering.
Yeah, and that's really,
issues. It's
I
not-
think, the question
the
that's more
uses or anything.
relevant.
Yeah.
Because since we're going to open the public hearing, I guess my viewpoint, or what I wanted to understand is there any reason why I feel like it needs to remain open if it comes back and there's going to be weird
And I
changes
don't think
or
so,
anything?
but
And so,
I think it should remain open just because why? I mean, we're not talking about it. We're going to continue it, so might as well leave it open. That's my opinion.
okay.
And look, I don't think anyone's going to even talk about it, so either time. Either time.
All right. Then at this time, I will open the public hearing, and I will ask Wendy if there's any remarks that have came through to us electronically. Okay. Then we have none electronically, and then I guess the rest of the time's left to those in this room, which I think most of you guys are actually tied to the applicant. So, looking at it from the perspective that some of the planning commission would like to leave it open, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure exactly why we need to, if there weren't any comments in the initial one, and not looking for any real changes occurring. But at this time, just looking at the rest of the planning commission, is there, I know Adam's view, Jackson, Lauren, what are your perspectives on this and leaving it open or not?
I don't think there's any harm in leaving it open at all.
I think it should be left open.
Okay. And Brody and Andrea?
Yeah,
you-
just with my comments earlier, I think it'd be great if we
And
could leave
Heather?
it open.
All right, then we will leave the public hearing open at this time, and then we'll look to the planning commission, just make a motion to continue the item.
I move to continue. Just a question before I do that, actually, it popped in my mind. If they reduce this to a different size, then wouldn't they have to reapply?
If they come in with just like a one lot,
Correct, but wouldn't they have to really even then re-amend this one?
we will think about it because we could approve the whole thing and they could just come in phases, right, and plat the one lot
Fair.
first. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
was.
so then that's what we need to work through is whether they're gonna have to apply for the one lot separately or whether we just do it as part of this plat.
Cool, well, with that, I move to continue item 3.1 without date.
Motion by Adam,
I'll second.
second by Lauren, and we'll call for a vote. Andrea?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
And Heather?
Yes.
All right, that item has been continued. And then we'll move to item 3.2, which is a request for amendment of the site plan and building elevations for Bellevue. And we'll turn to city staff.
All right. So we've had this on a few times. This is for Bellevue, which we approved a few years ago in 2015. They are coming in now asking for an amendment to to the phase 3 of their site plan, which is about 14 acres. So this is, I mean, again, you have all this in your packet. You had it all in there last week as well. So I'll go through all this. And then the applicant is also here, and they have their engineer and they have their Ryan Hales here. They've got everybody here for questions, so let me go through it. This is the previous site plan here on the left, and then the current proposed site plan on the right. I know that you've asked to see, kind of the comparison side by side, how that fits in there. Again, kind of a close-up there of the changes from the left to the right. And again, if you remember, a big part of this was because of the grade of the site, the slope of the site, kind of turning those buildings really helps them make up the grade. One of the things you guys had talked about last time was parking. So they were able to add garages to several of the courtyard units, and they also added some additional separate garages out here, which we'll go through. They do meet all of the parking requirements for residential. As you know, our current residential parking requirement is based on number of bedrooms for multifamily like this. So you can see the breakdown over there on the left of the parking. The commercial, the retail component of the parking was based on the parking study and kind of a shared parking, through here for the it's about 30,000 square feet of retail space. So again, this just shows you kind of the cross-section with the grading. And again, I'll kind of go through this and then you can have the applicant answer any other questions. These are the new renderings. These are the courtyard units. You had, again, talked about last time too, wanting to get more down to that, seemed like you kind of like that more two-story courtyardy feel, and they had kind of gone away from this, so these are the changes they've made. Again, adding garages on the back side of them using that to make up the grade through the site. And then this is in the condo and the condo elevations. This again to show the retail. The retail kind of comes all along the front of these buildings here and then down this street side to the center of these two buildings. See it there? And the landscaping plan. So again, this one is not a public hearing. This is just a conditional use amendment. The applicant is here if you've got questions. Any questions for me? All right.
Is applicant present? All right, if you want to come up and just state your name and then share any additional information.
Perfect, thank you. It's fun to see you guys in person again. The video is not near as good. We're excited to be back. My name's Loyal Hume. I'm an attorney at Curtin and McConkey and do this all over the country, land use type work, and excited to be with you again tonight. I've been in front of you many times and excited to be back. Some of you are new faces, others are familiar, so thank you for indulging us. Represent AFJS tonight, and I think Bryn's done a wonderful job. We've been back a number of times, so I'm hesitant to spend more time than is necessary, but I'll highlight a couple of things and then invite any questions, and I think, frankly, we may be at the goal line. At least that's where we hope we are tonight. As is mentioned in the first application, it's always fun to develop because what happens when you initially get your site plan and what happens when you get into the dirt and putting things together is sometimes different. And that's what's happened here. We've got a grade elevation that's a 60-foot difference from one end of the site to the other. And so while we got the original application approved by this group, we've come back and we've understood that practically speaking, people aren't going to want to walk it. There's going to be some problems both with parking and with the way that people access the residential as well as the retail. So we've come back with what we believe is a wonderful change that will address those issues and actually even make the development that much better for Herriman City. I'll note a couple of things from your last request. The first is there was some concern about the garages. We've added 81 new garages, so we have a total of 129 garages for 132 courtyard units. So virtually every courtyard unit now has a garage, which was
hold on, with that number, is that underneath the building or is that including the dark brown?
it includes 63 integrated, 66 standalone.
So it does it.
They're integrated and the standalone.
Okay.
But the ones that are standalone, you'll notice the changes, how those brown are now in the middle, as you requested. And so they're virtually like an access that you'd have at your home, a garage there. So literally, we're moving a few of the courtyard units. We're increasing a few of the courtyard units because of these changes. But those courtyard units, the biggest difference we felt you saw and we saw was that they didn't have the garages. So we've come back and been able to add those 81 new garages. So we have a total of 129, again, for those 132 courtyard units. So big change there for you. We think that you saw in some of those pictures how the retail's opened up, but to Mr. Jacobson's excellent comments last time, we want to make sure that this retail is acknowledged and accessible and very good retail for Herriman. And the beauty of where we've done here is we think we've been able to balance. So we have very good accessibility for both pedestrian as well as vehicular, but we've added signage and an ability, as you can see from these pictures, to show it signage on the building itself as well as signage up front that will make the retail excellent. So we've been able to overcome the constraints of the site, the distance changes and the elevation changes, so it can be a nice walkable site for your citizens, but still bring them in and let them show what's there. So we're really excited about this. I don't know if you've got any other issues. There were 12 conditions. As staff has noted, every one of them are met. There's really only 2 substantive changes. The one is that we moved some of the stacked flats to condo, but we addressed all those with these new garages, which we think we're really helpful with. And then to confirm, I know the other big issue from last time was that we had a little bit of a question about parking and whether we met your ordinance. We not only met it, but we exceeded by 34 parking stalls. So we've met it in every way and in fact exceeded it. And I think the confusion last time was our traffic engineer came back and said, hey, you know, you probably got way more than you need even then. But we said, look, let's just leave it. We're already 34 over, but that's good. So we're excited to field questions, but we think we've met everything that you guys have talked about and then some. And so we're excited to get this approved tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple questions, and I'm sure the planning commission may have some as well. So you say you exceed the parking by 34 units. What section of the development is that located in that these additional units are located? Is it along the stacked flats or the courtyard units that these additional?
Right there?
I need to defer to our traffic thing. Well, let me introduce tonight. I apologize, I didn't. Tyler Kirk is with Think tonight. Tyler, you'd probably be better to answer that than I in terms of where those parking stalls are located. But I think they're just throughout the site. But
Thank you. Really, there's no particular spot. They are just distributed evenly throughout the site. We did try to concentrate a little bit more around where the retail area was because we thought that may have more use there.
Can I ask you a question? Where are the tandem parking on this map?
Those are integrated within the courtyard buildings, in the garages, in the
Are
courtyard.
there two deep garages is what
Correct.
you're proposing?
Correct.
So really, I mean, I know you're saying 34, but really, I think it's more like 20 that you're over. Because I get that you're counting this
Sure.
car and this car.
Sure.
But we have to be realistic.
Sure.
That's probably not a realistic count if you were including those, correct?
That is correct. The way we understand is the ordinance is that those are allowed to be counted, however.
Okay. And which units are those? I'll be honest, my entire time I've been focused on the courtyards. I think I've been pretty clear on that. And I'm having a hard time visualizing how those buildings are designed.
Sure.
And I wasn't at last meeting, but
There
the
are
previous one, I didn't
two
clear on.
tandem garages in each courtyard building.
For the same unit?
No. So there's two
So there's
garages.
two total.
There's
is that what
two,
you're saying?
There's two garages that each have a tandem stall.
Okay.
So 4 total stalls there, and they're for different units, of course.
So you're,
if you look, there's 6 through 12 up there. If you go from right to left.
Yeah.
6 to 12, each one, only one of those in each one have a tandem.
but
Two.
I'm sorry, two.
Two tandems.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
But those are not attached to like the unit, they're just a garage that anybody can park in?
Some of them are attached directly to units. In fact, most of the garages that are in the courtyard buildings are directly attached to units. There are a couple where you transition through a hallway, then get into the unit.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to understand when you said the tandem unit. So the 2 stalls in the tandem unit, does that owner own both stalls or not really?
Yes, they would.
They would own both.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we go back to the first slide? I'm trying to remember the change. Oh, maybe the second slide, which is, thank you, sorry. So they're attached with parking lots between the front units and then the courtyard units now as well. So the parking actually drives through.
Correct. And then the other thing I think you'll like that you asked for last time is those garages. You'll notice how we moved them into and between the 2 differentiations. Yeah, thanks, Brent. Excellent job. We've got those parking garages between them. So it adds a bit of a buffer and it makes it nice and more convenient for the residents as well.
Were there parking stalls with the original ones at all in the courtyards?
They were garage.
Or garages, sorry.
Are you referring to the one we presented last time we were here, or
The
one that-
original.
The site plan from 2016, the approved one.
Yes, there were garages with those, yes.
They were all garages. Yep. And that's kind of the issue that's happening.
Right,
As
and
you've
that
gone
was
more
one-
dense, it's difficult to fit garages in, right? I mean, that's kind of where
Right,
we're at.
and so that was one of the concerns you expressed last time, was not having garages in those buildings, and so we integrated as much as we could.
Yeah, and I think you've been able to step it down the hillside with each one of those steps, you've got the parking coming off those
Yeah,
steps.
yeah, one of the things you'll notice like you're pointing out, is that we were able to use the garages to help transition the grade down the site. And so it actually reduced the height of the courtyard buildings, so we have more two-story elements, especially when you're visualizing it in the courtyard area versus what we had presented to you last time. So this transition's a little bit better with the grade, but it also gives us the opportunity to add the garages.
Also, Bryn noted this too in her presentation, but just worthy of noting is that the heights have gone down across the entire site. So in each one, we've been able to show those. So we're excited about that as well.
And then I just wanted, one last question is there's a walk, can you go back to the overall real quick?
Oh, the overall.
I assume that's a walkway between each of the 11 and 10 and 9 and 8 that goes over to the other areas. Are those the kind of grayish area? Those, move your mouse to the down.
Well, like
That-
here?
Is that a walkway?
That is correct, that's a walkway, yes.
Is it raised or
Is it stepped or anything, or?
No, as those goes across there, we're trying to make them accessible. So we're trying to,
So they can
line
go
them
to
up.
the store or whatever?
yes, correct.
Then a question for me, is there a desire to connect the roadway that accesses the garages up into the road to the north? Or up on this sheet, but. Because right now, the entire project only has 3 access points. And so I was wondering if there might be additional access points might be desired or not. And I don't know if engineering has had any thoughts on this either.
Almost over on the far parking lot on the right?
Yeah, it seems like there used to be one on this side,
Yeah, there
too.
used to be one that went out there. That was removed.
There was a lot of debate about the access, and we tried to limit the access to the townhome area that's to the up on your page. So that's why we only have one access point there. We feel like most people will use the other access points, and we'll try to keep the traffic flow through that way.
Okay.
And those are those garbage, little garbage units? Is that what those are?
The little angled ones that you
Yeah.
see, I can't see if Bryn's pointing to one, but yes, that's
Or
what
is
those are.
the-
Little-
Like this, Adam?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. The little enclosures for the trash.
I think you've accomplished more in line. I personally still like the architecture of the old buildings, but I think you've come closer, so I'm comfortable.
Bryn, how are we on open space? I feel like by adding all this parking, I don't love the open space. I mean, I know what we do have there is nice. It just feels like we lost a lot of, they still meet the open space
I'm
requirements.
trying to look where they are. I mean, yeah, down here, they're showing 33%.
You go to the comparison of the two? Because I thought it looked like they almost increased a little bit.
We're actually very close to what the open space was on the original approval. I don't remember the exact number, unfortunately, but I remember it being like 1,500 square feet or something difference is all it was.
I mean, the courtyards look essentially the same.
Actually, one of the things that we're kind of proud of, and I'm glad you brought this up because it gives us a chance to accentuate it, but if you look at the new one, it actually has, we think, a lot more areas in the courtyard as well as throughout. For example, look at the retail and how that opens up and how we have ability to have pedestrian and access through the retail, which we think will make it much more functional. We've distributed the open space a little bit more throughout as well. So there's not as much big areas, but we actually think it's more open. One thing that's a little bit optically an illusion is if you look at the first one, see where it looks like that yellow, looks like an E, if you will, on the top portion,
Yeah,
see
here.
that? Those are all buildings, that's not open space. So just so it's clear, those are all buildings. So if, and down on the bottom, it's kind of an L or a U, same thing, those are buildings, not open space. So that may be a little bit of the optical illusion. The open space is generally the same, but we actually think the new design distributes it a lot more. It's more welcoming to the residents and to the patrons for the retail. So we're actually excited about that. Appreciate you bringing that up, Mr. Palmer, because I think that's something we wanted to highlight.
All right, are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, then, thank you, guys. I'll let you have a seat. Okay, turning over to the Planning Commission, just further discussion. I will tell you that the only part that I guess, not for better terms, I'm a little bit disappointed with is the original courtyard architecture and feel I really enjoyed, which I feel like it's changed quite a bit and doesn't quite have that same feel. The stacked flats, the change there and everything else seems pretty reasonable and doesn't really bother me at all. But I remember the big selling point when they brought this whole development to us was that courtyard unit feel was totally different, and it really added a lot to it, and to me was one of the highest selling points, which it seems quite a bit different to me. It just doesn't seem like the same openness as, and it's really just confined in the middle and doesn't have the same feel when you're going through that area. And so to me, that's the only thing that I was a little disappointed with. Everything else, I mean, it meets the needs of what was asked of them, and it really accomplishes a lot of what was requested. And so, but that really is the biggest thing that I noticed with it, because I was impressed with the courtyards before, and I don't have the same feel anymore. But that's potentially personal taste as well. So,
Yeah, I've tweeted the same thing, and I've almost wondered if maybe we have the materials come back and look at it more specifically with just that piece. I mean, the overall layout and things I'm more comfortable with, but I mean, just 3 screenshots of them on angles just is kind of difficult for me. But I'm not
You're thinking of materials board?
materials board, understand it a little bit more of what the architecture, because I was like you, Chris, I was sold on the
I mean
the
that by
courtyards are honestly would have made me buy into the whole project.
yeah, it was by itself. I mean, I thought if we get these courtyards, I'm happy with everything else because these are so unique. And that's sort of how I felt when it was originally brought to us. And so changing that aspect of it feels like a drastic change to the overall project to me almost.
Yep. And that's why I've wondered about just focusing on the architecture of those buildings to try and pull it back to I mean, because that was some of the, if you go look at those pictures of what those buildings look like, that's what drew you to those buildings.
I don't know if we have some of the pictures handy for that original.
I was gonna say, I remember Jackson, because you weren't here, you saw them and you're like, those are substantially different between the two.
I don't have them handy. It would take a minute to find them.
I think it's okay.
Can you go back to the side-by-side, Bryn?
Yeah.
One thing I think that, and the real difference is really just, as I see it, and I see it as a necessary evil. There's really not a way around it, is you have that row of parking that fronts the buildings as opposed to having the garages in the buildings. So, but with the slope of the site, there's no way to get past that one.
Yep.
But having the parking off of either side on the ends of the buildings, so you have those steps that work with the site. I think that's really the only way to make it work. So.
No, I think knowing more, I think this is the right solution. I'm just trying to figure out, because of that drastic difference between the architecture.
Well, I look at what we did with the Edge product around here. I think we were stuck with a product, kind of stuck with the layout. And by really looking at the architecture, I think we made it I think we really can.
I agree.
I think we can bring that back and really still get that to be I'm good with this layout too, but I think we can make that.
So I'm kind of leaning on the approval with just the courtyard's architecture coming back.
I'm perfectly fine with everything 1 through 5, even the changing of the parking in between the courtyards and the stacked flats doesn't really, I'm not really affected much with it, but
I would
then
also say
the courtyard
the addition
change.
of the garages between there, it kind of creates an interesting division between the two sides of the development.
Yeah.
Which I like. Yep, I think it's good.
Which I think is kind of a nice, between the larger and and this makes it that much more of a transition between the townhouses and the taller.
I actually like the transition better between the two types now, better. The architecture, I still want to try and look at it a little bit more. That's me, though. I don't know.
And I think by doing that, we can get them moving forward, get them across the finish line, but still bring back that.
Well, if we were to get a finished board for the courtyard buildings.
Yep.
Or
I'd
materials
like to do
board.
that.
I agree too. I think the site plan, they did a good job at making a transition, but still has good walkability from the two different types.
So I'm ready to make a motion if no
So
one else has
number
them.
5.
I'm trying to find where the, that is, I'm sorry.
It's page 28. Are you?
Number 5, got it.
Yeah, number 5, so just change that one.
For phase 3, what, I don't know.
This
what-
whole thing is phase 3, so
Okay.
just specify the courtyards, I guess, within phase 3.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3.2 with staff's 12 recommendations with an alteration to number 5, that the elevations, material boards, and colors shall come back for the courtyard units.
I'll second.
Motion by Adam, second by Lauren, and we'll call for a vote.
Can I just clarify when you want that to come back? Prior to building permit, I guess? Prior, I mean, obviously it would have to be prior to building permit, so.
I think it needs to be before that. When do you think was the best time?
I mean, they're gonna wanna submit engineering probably yesterday,
Okay.
so that's my question is when, you just tell me.
How about before,
But I don't know if the engineering affects the building elevations, I guess
Yeah.
is what I'm saying, so I don't know when it.
are you guys, you're gonna subdivide all this, right, or not? I'm seeing no, I'm seeing maybe. You're not gonna subdivide?
Well, those are, the condos, you'll do a condo plat, right?
That's what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
we're gonna see that.
But the courtyards, are the courtyards condo units? Are they divided like a condo?
They're one master, they're basically a lease for the
It's
courtyard.
just one,
Still gonna have a plat though, right?
it still has to have a plat, yeah.
So prior to plat.
Okay.
Approval.
All right. Motion by Adam, second by Lauren, and then we'll call for a vote. Heather?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
And Andrea?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. And we got a vote by the bark, too. And then we'll move on to our only legislative item today, which is item 4.1, which is a request for a rezone property from A1 to A.25, and that is obviously a recommendation to the city council. And we'll turn to city staff to begin.
All right, so this is a rezone, 1.13 acres. I was gonna say just up the street, but City Hall is not over here anymore, on 6,000 West. So again, here's a close-up of the property. The property right now is 3 lots, basically, with access off of this access easement, essentially. We're just looking at the lot in the front. He'd like to rezone to 8.25 is what he's asking for. Mostly because, just with the location of the house, his hope is to subdivide, and he can't quite make both lots half an acre. So it'll likely be 0.4, something like that, but he just won't quite get to half an acre on the one lot. So again, right now, just rezoning and public hearing for that. And then he will come back with the subdivision. Like we talked about, there are a couple issues with the subdivision, which is engineering prefers not to have the driveway come out on 6,000. So we'll be working with him to have it come out this way and to do some improvements on this
Does that mean
access
it's gonna
easement.
be a public road then? Will that driveway become a public road?
That's what we're trying to deal with. We would essentially be doing a flag lot for this lot. And so he would improve, it would just, that's what we're working on. not
Improve
quite
to
sure how that's
driveway,
gonna
probably.
What?
Well, improve either to driveway or all the way the length of this.
But this lot in the back will have the flag, right? Like this probably, and then he will have access to that driveway.
Okay.
He will likely be asking the city council for an exception for something because he won't be able to meet something in the ordinance. Because of a couple things. We have talked to the city council about this, and the city council was on board with what he wanted to do, and they were aware that some kind of exception would likely be needed, mostly because of these existing homes. You know, obviously, this situation would not be allowed under the current ordinance, to have these 3 lots on this private driveway, basically.
I'm just a big fan of it should only be a public street, so.
Be completely a public street all the way back.
Because you're cheating, you're making that other one a flag lot because it's the only way to do it.
And that's what we don't know what we're gonna do. That's what we're trying to figure
I know
out.
we're not dealing with that right now, just
But we're
so
not
you're
doing, yeah,
aware.
you're right. And that's why we're doing the zoning first, because we knew that was gonna be kind of a challenge, so we,
I'd like to be clear where I stand on this situation.
one hurdle at a time.
Now, I'm not saying you would have to improve the entire area, the whole length of the cul-de-sac to
Right.
support it, but through his phase, I think it needs to be a public street.
And that may be, yeah, that's what we're not sure.
Because otherwise, we're going to have this everywhere in Old Herriman, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what, like I said, we talked,
Especially if we go with the 8.25 recommendation.
right, and I'm still hoping we can get that half acre, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess my next thought is, do you place or recommend conditions on it? No smaller than 0.33 or whatever.
Can you not make it 8.5? That was what I was going to ask.
You can recommend whatever you want.
I think we recommend, personally, I think we go with 8.5 and they get creative on their lot line. But we can get to that discussion.
Yeah.
later,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll get the applicant up.
So that's basically all I have is, again, so we're talking about zoning now. And then, no, let me just show you the general plan. Again, this is Old Town, so no density in this area is low density. And I would just also, on the zoning map, we have done a lot of different things in this area, again, Old Town. So there is 8.5, obviously 8.25 in Lafayette. And
Yeah, but those
there's
are-
a lot of zoning all around here, so.
I'll call those true subdivisions is why they might be more closer to 8.2.
Sure, Lafayette and those, yes, obviously. I was gonna point out something else. Oh, I think, and again, because this has been kind of a work in progress with the applicant, he's been very patient. You may need to make a recommendation, go to city council, and then, kind of now that I'm seeing what's happening, we may likely then hold it at city council, right? And then say, submit your subdivision. So we can actually see, because if he can get it to half acres, then let's zone it 8.5, right? And I don't want to zone it 8.25, and then he comes in and goes, oh, I could get it a half acre, and then we've already zoned it.
I'll
So,
be honest, I'm more comfortable with 8.5, and
Yeah.
I would be more willing to do 8.25 if he tied up all of that land as a master development, but that's different.
How large is this lot right now?
1.13 acres?
Because, I mean, obviously, they're gonna have to dedicate some land off of Pioneer as well, right?
There's a little bit in the front they'll have to dedicate, yeah.
Because that will affect it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's what, like I said, he hasn't gone that far yet with engineering and stuff, so.
But I have one last question for you. I am not aware of us doing 8.5 in anywhere of traditional Old Herriman. I'm not.
8.25?
8.25. Your zoning map right there. Those are 8.25 because
These are all 8.25 down here, but they were all that,
they were.
they started that way, yeah.
I'm just saying, if you look everywhere else, with the exception of Jerry Walker's development
Yeah.
that he's doing,
Yeah, everything was,
everything was 8.5 with the transition around the 8.25s with those three big
yeah, Old Town was all
subdivisions.
8.25 when we started, but the rest of this, you're right, was A1, and then these pieces that we've done.
Because if we would have changed that, I remember the discussion, if you go up kind of by the Silver Sky Drive,
Oh, over here?
that first house right there,
Yeah, we did him 8.5.
I remember
yeah.
he wanted 8.25.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was some of the discussion was to keep that feel of
Mm-hmm.
more open Old Town.
So if we had an 8.5, and the intention is to be as close to that as possible.
Yeah,
Correct.
Why can't we just say 8.5 and we're gonna, for just this lot, be with it, within 10% of that number?
I don't
know if
I don't know that we
Well,
can
then
do that.
He could request a variance if we just do 8.5.
8.5.
you can't resist, you can't request a variance, that's basically for a use, the lot size, and I don't think we can do that.
The only thing we could do is an 8.25 with a ZC with a higher.
With a higher, yeah, you can do
But
it that
the
way.
issue with that is now you've opened up that we're gonna have to.
The other
remember
thing
the
I think
ZC
is I
on
think-
everyone else.
Yeah.
And the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reason he thinks he can't get a half acre is because I told him if it was a flag, the driveway has to be owned by the lot in the back.
Say that one more time.
If he does a flag lot, then this driveway becomes owned by the house existing in the back.
Correct.
If he just divides it in half, and there's an access easement across, then they could both be half acres, I think.
If
You know what I'm saying?
if we say it's a public street, that's taken away from his acreage as well?
Oh,
isn't it?
yeah, the public street
Yeah, when he
almost
dedicates the
destroys
street,
this.
he'll lose that too, yeah.
But I'll be honest, I still think that's why these type of developments we're trying to not continue to add to.
Right,
And that's why on 7300 West.
Yep.
Or, what's your old address? What's the street? 5800, that's why we're not allowing, just so you all know, if we allow this, 5800 will open up to development. And that's where they're like 2 acre lots. And they can't develop because we won't allow them to do what we're saying here. And if we do this, it starts the precedence to say, okay, we'll keep developing. So,
But then you're also saying if the road is paved back, that changes that scenario, or no?
becomes a public street, that's different.
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, there are several, there's, I can think of 4 that I know of off the top of my head. And I don't have a map to show you, but it would be a snowball, and I know the one on whatever street I just said. What was it, 58?
58. yeah.
58 would be, you'd at least be able to develop 12 flag lots
Probably.
if you allow that.
And this is why we changed the flag lot ordinance, because,
we
you
didn't
know,
wanna do
we were
this.
trying to avoid all of these lots.
And the only one I know that was ever approved.
And the tough part for me
overridden
is, to
by
me,
a
this is,
That's correct, yes.
the tough part for me is this really isn't a flag lot, though. I mean, if it's going to come off of, and granted, it's a dirt
So
road.
if he improved this whole street as a public street, correct, it wouldn't be a flag lot. He could
Yeah.
access that way, and it wouldn't be an issue.
And even if he improves just to the end of his lot, I mean, is it technically a flag lot? If that becomes the length of his lot, public
If he
street?
improved the length of this as a public street, then no, he would not be a flag lot.
Correct.
Except for he wouldn't be able to be 8.5.
Yeah, he'd be nowhere near a half acre.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able
would've lost
to,
all
he
that.
wouldn't be able to get the half acres for sure.
But
So
I-
he would have to get an 8.25.
And that's why I personally
order
think
for it to work.
8.5 is what we need to do. I'm not trying, I understand your circumstance. I'm not trying to be.
I understand, Adam, where you're coming from, but I'm looking at the overall area here, and to me, it doesn't make much difference if this is a 8.25 when we have almost the majority of the area surrounded by 8.25. It's still going to have the feel of almost a half acre. And I understand you're worried more about precedence, but I'm also worried about something that, yeah, maybe we do have to have them paved down here and it's 8.25, but they have to, public road and things like that, and now it fits into that criteria. I'm not sure,
It wouldn't be a flag
yeah,
lot.
it wouldn't be a flag lot, but the only way they could do it is 8.25.
And that's, unless they tied it to more land, because my concern.
Because some of it is we
what
don't
did
want
on
it to front
7300
Pioneer.
West Is we did 8.25 out by 5 acre pieces of land. And then instantly it went to R110 and it got tighter and tighter and tighter. And then we had to backtrack and do 8.5. And so all I'm trying to say is I get this one land that it's difficult to develop. I'm not
But
saying
I'm also looking
but
at
it
it from
would
the
make all
perspective
those other
of,
people develop.
if it fronted Pioneer, he could get his half acre. Is that not wrong? But we don't allow them to front Pioneer. We don't
We
want
don't
them.
know that because we don't, he
Probably
doesn't have a
still
true,
would,
we don't know how much
because-
he's gonna lose in his dedication of 6,000. to be
Right, and
honest.
because again, the back house would need to own their driveway.
It'd still be a flag.
And so he'd lose.
Got it. So
some
that
of
would be
The
a true
back house
flag.
would become the flag.
Right.
Well, yeah. I guess I'm looking from the perspective of, is it really a flag if they just cut it off above that road and they don't own any of that because that's just the back road that goes to those three
What's an access?
old
So
houses?
I think strictly speaking,
This one has a lot of problems. How about that?
yes, for sure. I think strictly speaking, there are several requirements of the flag lot ordinance that he cannot meet
Yes.
without some type of exception from the council, which again, you can't grant. It would
No,
have to come
no,
from
we,
the council.
we can't.
Yeah,
But my mindset here is there a recommendation that we can make where it would allow them to do this? Because if there's not, then the only other recommendation is we can't. And I feel like there has to be a way to allow this, and the only way in my mind is 8.25.
Agreed. But I think that snowballs that everything to the, everything from right there to the east and everything to the west will be.
What's interesting about this?
8.25.
Well, how about we let the applicant come up
Do
and
it.
open the public hearing, and then we'll talk more. Can the applicant just come up, state your name, and did anyone notice if they wiped off the area before they left? Will you swipe out one of those wipes and wipe it down really well, real quick? Sorry about that. They should have done that before, but I didn't catch that.
Oh, you're fine.
And then just state your name.
All right, my name's Brandon Marble. I'm the applicant. My father, David Marble, who's the owner of the land, is here as well.
All right. And then just share any additional information. You've obviously heard us talk a little bit, but any additional information on the lot, maybe some thoughts on obviously the rezone and anything else you feel is relevant.
For sure. And I definitely recognize the lot presents a lot of problems for the current ordinances. It was all done legally in the 1990s with Salt Lake County. And preferably, we would prefer to have the half-acre lots and just divide it in half and do it nice and simple. And there's an established easement there that's on the zoning. It's been in use for 30-plus years by the people living there. I mean, I think the road itself has existed for almost 100 years as a farming road. So it's definitely been there for a long time. And we're just hoping to do it as simple as possible, but we're willing to work with Herriman City and whatever we need to do to help get that through. We're willing to work with you.
All right. Is there any questions for the applicant from the Planning Commission? All right, seeing none, I'll let you guys sit down again. And then we will open the public hearing at this time. Were there any remarks electronically, Wendy? All right, no remarks electronically. And then I don't think anyone from Herriman City is going to have any remarks on this.
Oh, you want the whole zoning map?
And so I will close the public hearing at this time, and now I'll turn to the Planning Commission to discuss in further detail.
Yeah, I think to prevent further like subdivision, we make the recommendation that it be A.5, and then leave it up to the city council to figure out how they want to deal with that.
To be honest, I'm more with that or a denial. That's kind of where I'm kind of stuck.
And the only question I have, is it even feasible to make it 8.5 and make it work? That's a lot of the question I have.
But I don't know, you'll know that till he does a survey. I mean,
Yeah.
surveys open a lot of, I've seen it add a lot of land to developments, and I've seen it take away a lot of land, so.
I have to kind of agree with Chris. I think that we need to look at, they would like to do the 8.5, but logistically they can't really get that in there. I think that what they're trying to do, it still fits, I think, kind of within this community. I know that it's not, your 1 acre lot here, but I really think that what they're trying to do would be fine with me. They do have that easement right through there, and I think that that's what is really kind of ruining their chances of doing the 8.5, but I'm good with the 8.25 for this house.
Thank you, Heather.
And I asked Bryn to pull this up because I'm just concerned about the entire A1 area right there. The reason why they did 8.25 in Old Herriman originally was because there were so many lots that were that size they had to deal with it, which then the drawback caused the flag lot issue, and that's why they did not, and that's why we did not allow Jerry Walker and all those other people to not be 8.25. So
Yeah, you can see Jerry's piece there, but the pieces that are left is this big piece here, Myrna's piece, and then this is,
Is that Miller's property?
that's
no, this is
Butterfields.
Butterfield's.
I think there's a Miller.
And then this is the city property in the
and-
front.
Isn't there Miller and Butterfield located in this A1?
There might be some both in there, yeah.
The city bought it all right?
The public works, the city Yeah.
the city bought that.
Public Works yard will be on the front there. But that from Walker.
So there has not been a survey done for this piece of property?
It won't do it till subdivision.
No, he hasn't,
Yeah, because it's gonna change once you get it.
Well, especially in Old Herriman, we all know that things change.
Old Herriman's.
I'll just be honest, when I used to work for the city, there was a couple lots that they went to do a flag lot, and one developer ended up with double his land, and the other developer could not even do the subdivision. So, it just depends.
Yeah, a survey would make a huge difference.
So,
Well, I think if you do the survey, you could start to get creative with the division between the two, so you can keep both at 0.5.
yeah,
And maybe, I don't know who lives back here, but maybe it's
maybe it's a
5 feet there or
by
something,
5
you know what I
feet
mean?
or something, I
Yeah.
don't know. Or behind even, right? It could go either direction.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, and I don't vote, so this doesn't mean anything, but I think what's interesting is that if you want to keep the feel of Old Town, and we can't do this because this is the problem with ordinances, right? Is there's just you let them cut it in half and leave a dirt road and build a house on it, and that's probably what everybody would
Do.
let him do. That's the unfortunate thing with ordinances sometimes, and with precedent, right? And with all that stuff is that,
But I have seen it where it takes a land like what's over with this 12724, and it takes a raw piece of land, and with a little bit of crying and emotional consternation, you get 5 homes off of a big giant non-subdivision flag lot. So I totally get where you're coming from, but I've seen it where and then it starts to become, well, I know, or my heartstrings want to pull to one side, and that's where I don't think the city planning especially should be looking at that.
well, we've heard it all the time. Well, you did it for so-and-so down the street from me.
Yeah, but I think it all needs to be, each lot is coming in here and requesting something different. And I
Yep.
think that the intentions with this lot is fine.
Adam, I wasn't here, obviously, for these flag lots. When I picture flag lot, I picture a driveway, because there are flag lots on 6,000, right? There are some on 6,000. There's a driveway off 6,000, and there's a flag driveway.
Correct.
Right next to, there's 2 driveways. To me, that's the exception here, is this isn't a traditional flag lot. This is, you're gonna go pull down the driveway. I know it's the same property, and it's gonna be platted but to me, that's why I think can be an exception made here, is because to me, it's not a true flag lot.
So to be honest, I totally agree with what you're saying, but flag lots were like a whoops, and that's why we added rules to remove that option.
Right.
And so I get that the new lot won't be a flag lot, but we're making his father's lot, I assume if he keeps opening it, become a flag lot. It would be a true flag lot.
It would by definition be a flag lot, yeah.
So we're
It would be platted as a flag, yeah.
I'm saying it would look, feel, and everything like a flag lot, which it kind of already has that feel.
And when we changed the ordinance, because again, and Adam will remember this, Old Town was already 8.25, so there was nothing we could do, and we did
It
do
came in with
several
the
of them.
county.
We did do several of them right in Old Town, where they were both quarter acres. So it was much tighter than what we're talking about here, you know what I mean? It was a
that's
quarter
why
acre in
Herriman
front and a quarter acre in back, much tighter, smaller property. And we
Yes.
did several of those.
There's a lot of those by the old city,
Yeah, a
city
lot.
hall, if you want to look at those. There would be developers that would come in, pick up a small lot and turn it into 4 homes, and there's nothing
And
we
that's
could
when
do.
and Old Town is the reason we changed the flag lot ordinance, was to kind of try and keep that in check. Again, this lot is bigger, so I do see it that it is different, because they would both basically be half acres. but-
See, I almost wonder if maybe we stay with the 8.5, but I don't know why we wouldn't allow a driveway off of Pioneer Street for one home off of the big side of that house.
There's a reason why, and I can't remember what it is.
There's no reason why. I think engineering would allow it. I think they prefer not to.
Well, it makes more sense not to have it
Yeah,
on Pioneer.
yeah.
Just common sense, let's not put another one by Pioneer.
It's just
when
like on
there's this road.
7300, and you know what I mean? We don't like it, but there are obviously several houses that do, that were existing, so, yeah.
No different than what we did on 6400 West when
Yep.
that one individual wanted to do 8.5s all the way down
Where a
the
lot
whole
of this
side.
came from, yeah.
And they were doing the same thing. It's a family for their kids. And so I just think that we should stick with the standard. So I guess It's gonna be one of those things where you just have to make a
Did we
recommendation.
close the public
and see.
hearing?
Have we
We did.
I mean, we can't make the exception anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm ready to make a motion.
It's really, at least the applicant is asking for a rezone property from A1 to A.25 as a recommendation to city council, or not recommending it and offering some other
And you can recommend whatever
suggestion.
you want, yeah.
Yeah.
and help me understand, Brent, because I'm still new. If we recommend 8.5,
Yep.
can the council still do 8.25?
The council
If they
can
can
change it
find,
to see
Do whatever they
because we're just making a recommendation, right?
Yeah. I think if
If
the
that's
applicant
good,
goes
you
to
know,
them-
understand if we do recommend an 8.5, there's still, because we can't make that exception. I think what Adam's saying is, we can't make that exception to get it below, so we'll make it what we can within ours. Right, Adam, is that, am I understanding it right?
I didn't understand what you just said. Just say that one more time.
He's just,
Yes, they can change whatever we want.
yeah, the city council can adjust it however.
I mean, that's what they did with Edge. They've done it before. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying because it's going to take an exception to get down to do what you, to do
8.25.
8.5, right? Anyway, it's going to take,
It would
so
be an
that's what we do,
exception.
what we can recommend.
And I think if the applicant goes to them with a reason why they need that, they may make that, so.
So with that, I'll make recommendations to City Council on item 4.1 to approve it with a rezone of A.5, and that is to ensure that we do not continue spot zoning throughout the Old Town community.
Second.
All right, a second by Andrea, and we'll call for a vote. And obviously, the motion was made by Adam. Vote Heather,
No.
Brody, we'll take a vote from the dog too, if you have it. Brody, are you there?
Been there.
He has. He got up for a second. No, I don't know that. All right, do you see Brody on?
They don't have the cameras on.
It says he's offline.
Oh, no.
Oh, he might have lost the internet. All right, do we have a telephone number?
I can hear now.
Oh, there you are, Brody.
Sorry.
Stop talking
All right,
about
can we restate the motion for Brody's sake? And Adam, do you mind just
Yeah, no
restating?
problem. I recommend item 4.1 to the City Council to approve the rezone from A1 to A.5. And the difference is to ensure that we do not have 8.25s throughout the entire Old Herriman.
All right, and then Andrea, do you second that again?
Yes.
All right, she's still there, good. And then we'll call for a vote. Heather,
No.
Brody?
Yes.
Oh, you made me nervous again. Jackson,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
and Andrea.
Yes.
All right, so that is a recommendation to the city council. So the next step will be looking for a variance through the city council. And are there any additional comments from the chair or commission?
I have a question. Have we done anything with localscapes? Did the city council approve that?
No, not yet. It's moving forward, yeah.
We have no choice. Sounds good. And then what is the status on our general plan?
That's a great question. And Mike's not here. Mike's out of town this week. So I'm not sure. We were supposed to have the first draft this month. So I'm not sure where we are though with that right now.
I do have something for engineering. I know it doesn't always make sense to make roads off of the primary roadway. I do think sometimes it makes sense if it's going to require us to change our zones, which could affect multiple lands.
Yeah.
So just think about it. That's all I'm gonna say.
With the length of it, it may require a turnaround for a fire truck.
Correct. Because it already does, technically.
It's over the 150, so.
The third home is, that's already on that street, so.
Yeah. But it's grandfathered in with how it is right now. Yeah. All right, any other additional comments? All right, thank you, Planning Commission. We do have future meetings. City Council will be held Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. Planning Commission Thursday, June 18th, 2020, and then another City Council meeting on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Adam, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys.
We do not have a meeting scheduled for July 2nd. Okay. You're welcome.
Can't go out of town anyways. I mean, is anybody's traveling?
So after that, our next one's not till July 18th or something, so.
Hello, Chase, how are you?
We don't